You wake up after spending time with them, and there is this feeling you cannot quite name. Not anger, not sadness, something quieter and more insidious. A heaviness that settles in your chest like sediment at the bottom of a glass. You tell yourself you're being too sensitive, too demanding, too much. After all, they have not done anything wrong, not really. There was no fight, no harsh words exchanged, no dramatic betrayal to point to and say, there, that is the problem. Instead, there is just this persistent sense that something inside you is slowly dimming, that the person you are when you are with them is somehow smaller, more careful, less alive than the person you are when you are alone. You have tried to fix this feeling. You have adjusted your expectations, modified your behavior, convinced yourself that all friendships require compromise. You have told yourself that you are overthinking, that you should be grateful to have someone who is always there, always predictable, always offering a familiar comfort. But the comfort has started to feel like something else entirely, like a weight you carry without realizing you are carrying it, like a room you have been sitting in for so long that you no longer notice it has no windows. And the most confusing part is that this person would never describe themselves as harmful. They would be genuinely shocked to hear that their presence in your life is costing you something essential. Because what they are taking from you, they are taking so quietly that even you have trouble seeing it clearly. What I want to explore with you is something that Hannah Arendt understood profoundly when she wrote about the nature of evil and its manifestations in ordinary life. She observed that the most dangerous destructions are not the dramatic ones, not the explosions of violence or betrayal, but the quiet, unremarkable patterns that accumulate over time until they have fundamentally altered the landscape of our existence. The kind of friendship that destroys you is rarely the one that announces its toxicity with grand gestures. It is the one that erodes you so gradually, so gently, that you mistake the erosion for the natural wearing away of rough edges, for maturity, for learning to be less selfish. You think you are growing when actually you are shrinking. You think you are learning to accommodate when actually you are learning to disappear. There is a particular architecture to these friendships, and once you begin to see it, you recognize it everywhere. It begins with comfort, with familiarity, with the relief of having someone who knows you. But somewhere along the way, that knowing calcifies into something rigid. They know you, yes, but they know a version of you that they need you to remain. When you try to change, to grow, to express some new aspect of yourself, there is resistance. Not loud resistance, not the kind you could argue against, just a subtle withdrawal, a slight cooling, a way of making you feel that your evolution is somehow a betrayal of the friendship. They might say they support your growth, but their actions communicate something different. They forget the things that matter to you. They interrupt when you speak about what excites you. They bring conversations back to familiar territory, to the scripts you have always performed together, to the roles you have always played. And you accommodate this because accommodation feels like kindness. It feels like being a good friend. You learn to edit yourself in their presence, to leave certain parts of yourself at the door when you enter the space of the friendship. At first, this editing seems minor. You stop talking about certain interests because they do not land well. You moderate your enthusiasm because it seems to make them uncomfortable. You suppress your questions and your doubts because they prefer certainty and resolution. Little by little, the friendship becomes a performance of a self that is not quite your full self. And the terrible thing is that you start to forget what your full self even feels like. The edited version becomes the default. The accommodation becomes your identity. What makes this so difficult to see is that these friends are often genuinely decent people. They are there when you need them, in the ways they know how to be there. They remember your birthday, they check in when you are sick. They offer the kind of support that is visible and quantifiable. But what they cannot offer, what they actively resist, is the space for you to be complicated, contradictory, evolving. They need you to be stable because your stability serves their own need for predictability. Your growth threatens the equilibrium of the relationship, and so growth must be subtly discouraged, not through overt criticism, but through 1,000 small ways of making you feel that who you are becoming is somehow less acceptable than who you have always been. Arendt wrote about the banality of evil, about how ordinary people commit extraordinary harm, not through malicious intent, but through thoughtlessness. through an inability to think from any perspective but their own. And while we rightly apply this insight to political atrocities, it illuminates something crucial about the personal realm as well. The friend who destroys you is not trying to destroy you. They genuinely believe they care about you, but their care is bounded by their own needs, their own fears, their own inability to tolerate your complexity. They cannot think themselves into your experience. They cannot imagine that what feels supportive to them might feel suffocating to you. And because they cannot imagine it, they cannot see the harm they are doing. The destruction happens in the gap between their intentions and their impact, in the space where thoughtfulness should exist but does not. You might recognize this pattern in how conflicts are handled, or rather how they are not handled. In these friendships, disagreement is treated as a disruption to be smoothed over as quickly as possible rather than an opportunity for deeper understanding. When you express discomfort or hurt, the response is designed to restore equilibrium without actually addressing the substance of what you have said. They might apologize quickly, superficially, in a way that closes down conversation rather than opening it up. Or they might become wounded themselves, making your hurt about their hurt, so that you end up comforting them for the pain you tried to express. The message beneath the message is always the same. Your feelings are too much, too complicated, too demanding. The friendship can only continue if you agree to keep things simple, light, unchallenging. And you do agree, again and again, because the alternative seems to be ending the friendship, and you are not ready to do that. You are not ready because this person has been in your life for a long time, or because you share a history, or because ending it would require you to admit that you have been diminishing yourself for years, and that is too painful to face. So you stay. You tell yourself it is loyalty. You tell yourself that all relationships require compromise. You tell yourself that you are being too demanding to expect a friend to hold space for all of your complexity. But what you are really doing is choosing a familiar diminishment over the uncertainty of honoring yourself. If this is resonating with something you have been feeling, something you have not quite been able to articulate, consider subscribing. I explore these territories every week, and I would be honored to have you along for the journey. The insidious thing about this kind of friendship is that it masquerades as safety. When you are with this person, there is a predictable rhythm, a known quantity, a sense that you understand the rules and can navigate them successfully as long as you do not deviate too far from the script. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, this predictability can feel like a refuge. But refuge and prison can sometimes look remarkably similar from the inside. Both offer protection from the outside world. The difference is whether you can leave when you want to. And in these friendships, leaving feels impossible not because you are being held against your will, but because you have become so adapted to the constraints that you no longer remember what freedom feels like. There is a way these friends talk about you that should alarm you if you are paying attention. They tell stories about you that are always the same stories, that freeze you in a particular moment or characteristic, as if you have never evolved beyond it. They introduce you to new people with anecdotes that reduce you to a role you played years ago. When you object, when you say that you are not quite that person anymore, they laugh it off, insisting that you have not really changed, that they know you too well to be fooled by your attempts at reinvention. And beneath the affectionate teasing is a genuine resistance to seeing you as anything other than what you have always been. Because if you have changed, then maybe they should change too, and change is precisely what this friendship is designed to prevent. You might notice that in their presence, you become a particular version of yourself that you do not necessarily like. You complain more. You gossip more. You settle into patterns of cynicism or judgment that do not characterize you when you are alone or with other people. There is something about the dynamic that brings out not your best self, but your smallest self, the one that is afraid to be generous or vulnerable or ambitious, because those qualities have never been rewarded in this particular relationship. And over time, you start to wonder if maybe this smaller self is your real self, if the person you are when you feel free and expansive is just an illusion you tell yourself. The friendship becomes a mirror that reflects back only your limitations, never your possibilities. Let me ask you something directly, and I want you to really sit with this question. How long have you been carrying the weight of this friendship alone, pretending it nourishes you when really it depletes you? When did you first start to notice that you feel more tired after seeing them, more doubtful of yourself, more disconnected from what matters to you. I know many of you have never spoken about this to anyone. You have been carrying it in silence, maybe for years, thinking that to name it would make you ungrateful or disloyal or cruel. But here is what I want you to understand. The moment you acknowledge this truth, even just to yourself, even just in a comment below, something begins to shift. You stop being alone with the quiet, knowing that something is wrong. So I am asking you now, when did you first notice? When did the friendship start to feel like a performance you could not stop giving? Share in the comments, not because I need you to, but because someone else watching this needs to see your words. They need to know they are not the only one who feels diminished by someone who is supposed to lift them up. And if you cannot find the words right now, if it feels too complex or too painful to articulate, just type this: I have felt this too. That is all. Just those 4 words. Because when you do, you give permission to others who have been silent. Your honesty breaks the isolation that has kept all of you pretending that these diminishing friendships are normal, acceptable, the price of connection. Comment below. Tell me where you are in this. I read every single one, and I promise you, you are not alone in what you are experiencing. What Arendt helps us understand is that the most profound failures of relationship are failures of imagination and thought. The friend who destroys you is not able to imagine your inner life as vividly as they imagine their own. They cannot think themselves into your perspective with enough depth to recognize that their comfort might be your confinement. This is not necessarily because they are bad people. It is because genuine thinking, the kind that Arendt champions, is difficult. It requires suspending your own certainties, entertaining contradictions, sitting with ambiguity. It requires recognizing that the person in front of you contains multitudes that you cannot fully know or control. And many people, even decent people, even people who care about you, are not willing or able to do that work. They want friendship to be easy, uncomplicated, a place where they do not have to question themselves or be questioned. And so the friendship becomes a kind of theater, where everyone performs their assigned roles and deviations from the script are discouraged. You are the listener, and they are the talker. You are the one who adapts, and they are the one who remains fixed. You are the one who makes space, and they are the one who fills it. These roles feel natural because you have been performing them for so long, but naturalness and rightness are not the same thing. Something can feel utterly familiar and still be fundamentally wrong for you. The body learns to accept what the mind has not yet had the courage to refuse. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes from being in a friendship where you cannot be fully yourself. It is lonelier, in some ways, than being actually alone, because it masquerades as connection while delivering isolation. You are together, but you are not truly seen. You are speaking, but you are not truly heard. You are present, but you have left the most essential parts of yourself outside the room. And over time, this creates a split in your consciousness. There is the self you perform in the friendship, and the self you are when you are free of it, and the gap between them grows wider until you start to feel like you are living a double life. Except both lives feel somehow false because you have been performing for so long that you no longer remember what authenticity even feels like. Consider how these friendships affect your other relationships, your work, your creative life, your sense of possibility. When you spend significant time with someone who needs you to stay small, you begin to approach everything with a preemptive smallness. You do not pursue opportunities because you have internalized the message that ambition is threatening. You do not express enthusiasm because you have learned that excitement is embarrassing. You do not take risks because you have been taught that safety is the highest value. The friendship becomes a training ground for self-limitation, and the habits you develop there leak into every other area of your life. You start to police yourself even when the friend is not present. You have absorbed their perspective so completely that you no longer need them to enforce it. You do it to yourself, and yet, and this is crucial, you are not a passive victim in this dynamic. You are participating in your own diminishment, making choices every day to prioritize the friendship over your own integrity. This is not to blame you. Understanding your participation is not the same as accepting culpability for harm someone else is doing. but it is to recognize that you have agency, even when it feels like you do not. Every time you edit yourself, you are choosing the friendship over the fullness of your being. Every time you swallow your truth, you are choosing temporary peace over long-term authenticity. You are making these choices for understandable reasons, out of fear of conflict, out of loyalty to shared history, out of a belief that this is what friendship requires. But they are still choices, and recognizing them as such is the first step toward making different ones. The question Arendt would ask is this: what are you actually loyal to in maintaining this friendship? Are you loyal to the person as they actually are, or to your idea of what the friendship should be? Are you loyal to the history you share, or to the possibility of who you both could become? Are you staying because the relationship genuinely nourishes you, or because leaving would require you to admit that you have been accepting less than you deserve? These are not comfortable questions. They do not have easy answers. But they are the questions that thoughtful people must ask themselves if they want to live examined lives rather than simply going through the motions of relationship, because it is easier than choosing solitude. There is something almost addictive about these diminishing friendships. They provide a reliable hit of familiar comfort, a known quantity in an uncertain world. Even though that comfort is coupled with diminishment, even though you feel worse after the interaction than before, there is a perverse safety in the predictability of it. You know how to navigate this dynamic. You have mastered the art of making yourself smaller. And in that mastery there is a kind of competence, a sense that you are good at something, even if that something is slowly eroding your sense of self. Leaving would mean entering unknown territory, facing the discomfort of either being alone or building new friendships where you have not yet learned the rules, where you might fail, where you might be rejected, not for being too small, but for being too much. But what if being too much is actually being exactly right? What if the qualities this friendship has taught you to suppress are precisely the qualities that make you most alive, most interesting, most yourself? What if the friend who needs you to stay small is preventing you from discovering what you are actually capable of when you stop accommodating their limitations? These are not hypothetical questions. They are invitations to consider that the cost of this friendship might be higher than you have allowed yourself to calculate. Not just the immediate cost of feeling diminished after interactions, but the cumulative cost of years spent not becoming who you might have become if you had been free to grow without constraint. Arendt understood that human beings are fundamentally plural, that we exist in relation to others, that our identities are formed and reformed through our interactions and connections. But she also understood that not all relationships serve our capacity for authentic existence. Some relationships, even ones that look benign from the outside, quietly foreclose possibilities, narrow our sense of what is permissible, train us to accept less vitality in exchange for more certainty. The friend who destroys you is often the friend who offers you a fixed identity, a stable role, a predictable dynamic, and asks only that you stop changing, stop questioning, stop wanting more than what this particular configuration can provide. And for a while, maybe a long while, you accept this trade. You choose the comfort of being known, even if you are known incompletely. You choose the ease of familiar patterns, even if those patterns are slowly suffocating you. You choose the relationship over the risk of not having the relationship, because the fear of loneliness is more immediate than the fear of self-betrayal. But there comes a moment, and perhaps you are in this moment now, when the cost becomes impossible to ignore. When the gap between who you are in this friendship and who you are capable of being becomes so wide that crossing it within the friendship feels impossible. When you realize that being true to yourself and maintaining this relationship are fundamentally incompatible goals, this realization is not easy. It does not come with a clear action plan or a sense of relief. It comes with grief. Grief for the time you have spent accommodating what diminished you. Grief for the friendship you thought you had but never quite did. Grief for the version of your friend that you needed them to be but they could not become. Grief for the simplicity of believing that all you needed to do was try harder, be better, accommodate more gracefully. The loss of that illusion, even when the illusion was costing you dearly, is still a loss. And you must allow yourself to grieve it rather than rushing toward resolution or pretending the loss does not matter. But alongside the grief, if you are paying attention, there is something else. a stirring of possibility, a tentative wondering about what your life might look like if you stopped performing smallness. If you allowed yourself to pursue what genuinely interests you without worrying about how it will be received. If you surrounded yourself with people who are curious about your evolution rather than threatened by it. If you stopped using this diminishing friendship as the template for all relationships, and instead asked yourself what you actually need from connection, what you actually have to offer when you are not busy making yourself palatable to someone who cannot hold your fullness. These questions do not have immediate answers. They unfold slowly, through experimentation, through trial and error, through the difficult work of unlearning the accommodation you have mastered and learning instead the much harder skill of presence, of showing up as you actually are and trusting that the right people will recognize you. This work is not comfortable. It requires you to sit with uncertainty, to tolerate the possibility of rejection, to face your own fears of being too much or not enough. But it is also the only work that leads to genuine connection, to relationships where you do not have to choose between being yourself and being loved. What I want you to understand, what Arendt would want you to understand, is that the capacity for new beginnings is always present. She called this natality, this human ability to start again, to interrupt established patterns, to bring something new into the world simply by choosing differently. You are not trapped in this friendship, even if it feels like you are. You are not condemned to keep performing this diminished version of yourself, even if you have been doing it for years. Every moment offers the possibility of choosing differently, of honoring what is true even when that truth is uncomfortable, of recognizing that loyalty to yourself is not selfishness, but the foundation of any authentic relationship. This does not necessarily mean you must end the friendship, though that might be what integrity requires. It might mean renegotiating the terms, setting boundaries you have never set before, refusing to perform the roles you have always performed. It might mean having the difficult conversation you have been avoiding, saying clearly what you need and what you can no longer accept. It might mean creating more distance, seeing this person less frequently, investing your energy in relationships that do not require you to diminish yourself. The specific action is less important than the internal shift, the moment when you stop prioritizing the friendship over your own integrity, when you recognize that a relationship that requires you to betray yourself is not a relationship worth maintaining at any cost. And here is what you must understand about that shift. It will feel disloyal at first. It will feel selfish. It will feel like you are being a bad friend, an ungrateful friend, a friend who is asking for too much, because you have internalized the message that your needs are excessive, that your fullness is overwhelming, that your truth is too complicated. You have learned to see yourself through the eyes of someone who needs you to stay small, and that vision has become so familiar that it feels like objective reality. But it is not objective reality. It is simply one person's limited capacity to hold you, and their limitation is not your problem to solve by making yourself smaller. Their limitation is information about what this friendship can and cannot provide, and you get to decide whether what it provides is worth what it costs. If what I am sharing here resonates with something you have been feeling but could not quite name, if this exploration is helping you see your situation with new clarity, then I want to invite you to be part of this community. Not because you need another subscription, but because this work we are doing here, this examination of how we lose ourselves and how we might find ourselves again, this is not solitary work. It helps to have companions who are also asking hard questions, who are also willing to sit with uncomfortable truths, who are also choosing integrity over comfort. I create these videos for people who are ready to go deeper, who understand that real transformation does not come from quick fixes, but from patient, honest examination of the patterns that shape our lives. If that describes you, if you are ready for this kind of exploration, hit the subscribe button. Join us in this ongoing inquiry. And if this particular video touched something in you, if it helped you see your friendship more clearly, let me know in the comments. Your reflections matter. They help me understand what is landing, what needs more exploration, what questions are most urgent for people walking this path. So subscribe if this feels right. Comment if you have something to share. And know that you are part of a community that values depth, honesty, and the courage to see what we have been avoiding. The path forward from recognizing that a friendship is destroying you is not straightforward. There is no formula, no 5-step process, no guarantee that doing the right thing will lead to the outcome you hope for. This is part of what makes it so difficult. We want certainty. We want to know that if we end the friendship or set boundaries or have the hard conversation, things will get better. But Arendt reminds us that action is always unpredictable, that we can never fully control the consequences of our choices, that we step into the unknown every time we choose authenticity over comfort, and yet she insists we must act anyway. Not because we know it will work out, but because the alternative, remaining in patterns that diminish us, is a kind of living death. Consider what it costs you to stay silent about what you know, to wake up every day and perform a version of yourself that is not quite true, to arrange your life around someone else's need for you to remain unchanged, to edit your words, your enthusiasm, your questions, your growth, your very being, to fit within the narrow confines of what this friendship can tolerate. That cost accumulates. It shows up in your body as tension, as exhaustion, as a vague sense of malaise you cannot quite explain. It shows up in your choices as a preemptive self-limitation, a habit of playing small before anyone asks you to. It shows up in your relationships as an inability to trust that anyone could want the fullness of you rather than just the convenient parts. The cost of maintaining a diminishing friendship is not just the friendship itself. It is what the friendship teaches you about your own worth, about what you deserve, about what is possible in human connection. And yet you stay, because leaving feels impossible, because you do not want to hurt someone who has not done anything overtly wrong, because you fear the loneliness that might follow, because you are not sure you can trust your own perception, not sure you are not being too sensitive, too demanding, too ungrateful. So you stay in the ambiguity, hoping the friendship will somehow transform itself without you having to take action, waiting for permission that will never come, because the only person who can give you permission to honor yourself is you. But what if the waiting is the problem? What if the ambiguity you are tolerating is precisely what allows the destruction to continue? What if clarity, even painful clarity, is the only way forward? This does not mean you must have all the answers before you act. It means you must be willing to act without having all the answers, to trust that taking a step toward your own integrity, even a small step, even an uncertain step, is better than remaining frozen in a situation that is slowly eroding who you are. The step might be setting a small boundary. It might be saying no to an invitation. It might be being honest about how you feel after spending time together. It might be simply stopping the automatic accommodation, the reflexive editing, the constant management of yourself to make the friendship work. These small acts of integrity, they add up. They begin to shift the dynamic, to create space where there was none, to introduce the possibility that things could be different. Sometimes the friendship responds, evolves, becomes something more genuine. Sometimes it cannot tolerate even these small changes and begins to dissolve on its own. Either outcome is information. Either outcome is better than remaining in a dynamic where you must betray yourself to maintain the connection. Because what kind of connection is it really if it requires your self-betrayal? What kind of friend needs you to diminish yourself for their comfort? And what kind of life are you building if you allow that diminishment to continue unchallenged? The friend who destroys you does so quietly, gradually, through 1,000 small moments of making you feel that your fullness is too much. And you participate in that destruction by accepting their assessment, by agreeing to be less, by choosing the relationship over yourself again and again. But you also have the capacity, right now, in this moment, to begin choosing differently. Not perfectly, not with complete certainty, not with guaranteed outcomes, but with a commitment to your own integrity that is stronger than your fear of loss. That commitment is not selfishness. It is the foundation of genuine relationship. Because you cannot truly connect with anyone if you are not truly present, and you cannot be truly present if you are constantly managing and editing and diminishing yourself to fit their expectations. So the question is not whether this friendship is destroying you. If you have read this far, if any of this resonates, you already know the answer to that question. The question is what you are going to do with that knowledge. Are you going to keep it tucked away, a private awareness that changes nothing? Or are you going to allow it to inform your choices, to guide you toward relationships and ways of being that honor rather than diminish you? This is not a rhetorical question. It is the most important question you will face in relation to this friendship. And the answer will determine not just whether the friendship continues, but what kind of person you become, what kind of life you build, what kind of connections you allow yourself to have. Remember, you are not asking for too much when you want to be seen fully, when you want space to grow, when you want a friendship that does not require you to perform a fixed identity. You are asking for what every human being deserves in genuine connection. The friend who cannot provide that is not a bad person, but they are also not the right friend for you at this stage of your life. And recognizing that, grieving that, and choosing differently is not betrayal. It is honesty. It is integrity. It is the difficult, necessary work of building a life that is actually yours, rather than a performance designed to make others comfortable. You deserve that life. You have always deserved it. And the moment you begin to believe that, truly believe it, is the moment everything begins to change.